When did you realize your coworker was trying to replace you? She started as the helpful new hire, stayed late to learn my filing system, asked how I liked my coffee, complimented my presentation style. I thought I was finally getting a teammate who cared. Then she started dressing exactly like me. Same blazers, same jewelry, even the same lipstick shade I wore on client calls. I mentioned it to my manager once. He laughed and said I should be flattered. Then it got weirder. She started replying to client threads the second they hit our team inbox. Not wrong, just fast. Like she was hovering. She'd accidentally take my labeled lunch from the fridge, and she somehow always knew where I'd be. My gym, the grocery store near my apartment, my usual coffee shop, always with that smile. Always. What a coincidence. I changed my routine. She still showed up. I went to HR and said she was making me uncomfortable. They told me she hadn't violated a policy. Not yet. My boyfriend said I was being paranoid. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots, dates, times, witnesses. Then the client started calling her instead of me. Not the main office line. Her personal phone. She'd somehow gotten their numbers and was just checking in. When I raised it, my manager said she was showing initiative. When I confronted her in the parking lot, she didn't even pretend anymore. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're just mad because I do your job better than you." That night, I stopped guessing. I called IT and asked a simple question. Who's been opening my project folders? They pulled the access logs. And there she was, over and over, inside my files for months. She'd been getting in using credentials I'd shared early on while training her, back when she said she couldn't access anything. I never thought she'd keep them. She'd copied my project templates, my client notes, my strategy docs. She wasn't learning from me. She was building a portfolio of my work to present as her own. So I set a trap. I created a fake project file with confidently written, absolutely terrible advice, the kind that would tank a relationship in one meeting. I saved it where she always went snooping. 2 days later, in our team meeting, she pitched her idea. My fake idea. The one that would have cost us our biggest client. For the first time, my manager didn't laugh. He went quiet. Then he asked her where she got it. She smiled like it was natural, like it belonged to her. After the meeting, IT did a full review. They found more than file access. She'd created forwarding rules and been sending copies of my emails to her personal account. HR escalated it immediately. Then the part that made my skin crawl. IT asked if I'd ever logged into personal accounts on my work laptop. And yes, I had. Once, months ago, I'd pulled up my home security app on a break because it sent a notification. I didn't think about it after, but she did. She'd accessed the saved login and pulled up my camera feed. She knew when I left, when I came home, when I was alone, and there were timestamps where the feed had been opened late at night, while I was sleeping. The police called it stalking. They searched her apartment. It was curated, clothes bought to match mine, printed photos of me from social media, notes where she'd practiced copying my phrasing, my signature, my handwriting, and a plan, written out, about getting me blamed for a client data incident right after she stepped up to replace me. She wasn't trying to get promoted. She was trying to erase me. She's not allowed within 500 feet of me now, but sometimes I still feel her, like a shadow that didn't fully leave. Sometimes I see someone in the same blazer and my blood runs cold. Then I remember, I kept every receipt, every screenshot, every timestamp. I was ready. And she's unhireable now. Turns out companies don't like identity thieves.
My sister opened a velvet box and found a diamond Rolex at Christmas, while I unwrapped a pair of socks and laughed. I kept smiling until I canceled the insurance policy that made the watch untouchable. I'm Kyle. I'm 29, and until that Christmas, I would have told you my family was fine. Functional. Loud holidays, inside jokes, the usual hierarchy we pretended didn't exist. The living room was packed that Christmas Eve. My mom was taking photos for Instagram gratitude posts. Lauren sat closest to the tree, legs folded, phone face down, ready. Then my mom slid a small, heavy box toward her. This one is special. Lauren opened it slowly. A diamond Rolex. The room buzzed. My dad talked about insurance coverage, policies, how some things are worth protecting. When it was my turn, my mom slid a flat package toward me. Yours is practical. Socks. Gray socks. I smiled. I always smile. I made a joke about needing them. Everyone laughed. Lauren squeezed my arm, still wearing the watch, and said, "Next year." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. See, I knew more about that Rolex than anyone realized. Months earlier, I'd been the one sitting at my laptop, sorting through insurance options, negotiating coverage. My dad trusted me with the boring details, at least when it was convenient. Over the next few days, the jokes started. Texts about stepping up your sock game. Photos of Lauren's wrist captioned, "Still can't believe it." My dad asked me to double check that everything was finalized. That's when something shifted. Not anger, something colder, realization. The smile I'd worn for years wasn't politeness, it was permission. Requests kept coming. Can you check if her watch policy covers travel? Can you be her emergency contact for everything? Always filtered through my parents. Always assumed. At Sunday dinner, my mom said, "You're so responsible. We were thinking you could oversee everything while she's gone." Lauren smiled. "You don't mind, right? You're good at this stuff." "I mind," I said. The table went silent. "Don't make this a thing," my dad said. "I'm not. I'm just saying no." Lauren's smile faded. After everything mom and dad do for you, the conversation died there. The next day, my dad called. They were transferring everything out of my hands. Bank contacts, emergency forms, decisions. Everything except one thing, the insurance policy. Too complicated. We'll get to it later. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Then Lauren told people I was jealous, that I'd always had issues with her success, that I was holding things over her head. That night, I opened my laptop, read the fine print. Not as a task, as a turning point. Weeks passed. I stopped initiating contact. Life moved on around me. I started therapy, got a promotion, rearranged my apartment. Each no felt like lifting a weight. Then one Thursday, my dad called, voice tight. "We have a problem. The watch. Something happened." Lauren had left it in a hotel room, just for a moment. When she came back, the velvet case was gone. The insurance company says the policy policy isn't active, he said. You handled that. You said it was covered. I said it was covered under specific conditions, I replied. And I told you months ago I wasn't managing it anymore. Silence. What does that mean? It means the watch isn't insured. The truth was simple. When the renewal notice came up, I followed my mom's instruction. Her text telling me, maybe you shouldn't be involved at all. I removed myself, cleanly, officially. Without an authorized handler, the policy lapsed. Lauren called, breathless. Please tell me this is a mistake. It's not. You knew this would happen. I stepped back. There's a difference. She went quiet. Not calm. Empty. The insurance company declined the claim. The watch was gone. My parents came over that weekend. Together. We didn't know, my mom said. We assumed you'd handle it. You always did. My dad finished. He nodded slowly. We were wrong. Lauren didn't come. She didn't apologize. The watch had been proof that she was favored, protected, special. Losing it stripped that away. Months later, at another holiday gathering, the gifts were modest, balanced, no velvet boxes. My dad pulled me aside after dinner. I'm proud of you. Not for what happened, for who you became. I didn't win anything tangible. No apology tour, no public vindication. What I gained was quieter, autonomy, clarity, understanding that love doesn't require self-erasure. Sometimes people only learn your value when you stop subsidizing their comfort. And sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't what you take away. It's what you finally stop giving.
My twin brother betrayed our family over a $2 million inheritance, but karma hit him harder. 3 weeks after my dad's funeral, I finally had the strength to sit down at his desk and start going through his finances. My mom was a mess. She hadn't eaten a full meal since we buried him, and I knew if I didn't step up, no one would. So I logged into my dad's bank account to figure out how much we had to work with for her care, for the house, for everything, and my stomach dropped. The balance read $12. That was it. $12 out of what should have been over $2 million. I refreshed the page 3 times because my brain literally could not process what I was seeing. I scrolled through the transaction history and my hands started shaking. Withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal, all within the last month, all while my dad was dying in hospice, all while I was holding his hand and watching him take his last breaths. I called my twin brother Seymour immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I texted him saying it was an emergency about dad's money and he needed to call me back right now. 20 minutes later, he finally picked up and his voice was way too calm. I told him the account was empty and asked if he knew anything about it. There was this long pause. Then he said, yeah, I took it. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just, I took it. I couldn't even speak. He kept talking like it was the most normal thing in the world. He said he used it to buy a house in Arizona. Cash. Even over the phone, his words dripped with entitlement. I deserved it because dad never appreciated me. You got all the attention growing up, so this is me evening the score. I took a deep breath, trying to reason with him. What about mom? What about her medical bills? What about the fact that she has nothing now? He said, that sounds like a you problem. Then he hung up. I sat there in my dead father's office chair and I cried harder than I did at the funeral. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about the fact that I spent the last 8 months of dad's life driving him to chemo, staying overnight at the hospital, cleaning up after him when he couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. And where was Seymour during all of this? Nowhere. He visited twice in 8 months, and both times he complained about how far the drive was. The next few weeks were a blur of panic and anger and trying to figure out what to do. I talked to lawyers who told me it would be nearly impossible to get the money back. Seymour had already spent it. The house was in his name. Even if I sued him, I'd be fighting for years and paying legal fees I couldn't afford. My mom started having to skip medications because we couldn't cover the costs. I had to take out a personal loan just to keep her lights on. That's when karma showed up in the form of a call from my dad's lawyer. He asked me to come into his office because there was something important I needed to see. I drove over thinking it was probably just more paperwork, more depressing reminders of what we lost. But when I sat down, he slid a document across the desk and said, your father has prepared for this. I didn't understand at first. But then he explained, your dad had created 2 wills. The first one was the standard inheritance split between you and Seymour, but the second one was hidden. It says that if any unauthorized withdrawals happened with the money from the first will, the beneficiaries have the right to pursue full legal recovery. I smiled as I realized what this meant. My dad had created a second will so that if any money was taken unauthorized, it would be returned back to me. And now Seymour was about to lose everything. Seymour got served papers 2 weeks later. He called me screaming, asking how this was possible. I told him exactly what dad's lawyer told me. Dad knew you'd do this. He just hoped you wouldn't.
My roommate looked up from his phone and asked, dude, why is your dad camping outside the dean's office? I felt my chest tighten. I told Jake he was seeing things. My dad lived in Seattle, worked in tech consulting. We barely talked. That's what I told everyone at this university. That's what I wrote in my admissions essay about overcoming distance. Jake showed me his phone, campus security Twitter feed, photo of a man in a sleeping bag on the steps of the administration building, holding a sign. I zoomed in and my blood went cold. The sign read, I want to tell my son I'm sorry before they arrest me. That was my dad. I grabbed my jacket and ran across campus. By the time I got there, a small crowd had formed. My dad saw me coming and stood up. He looked awful, thinner, older, exhausted. Campus security was standing nearby, clearly waiting for someone to tell them what to do. I walked up to him and said, what are you doing? He said, they're charging me with trespassing in an hour. I needed to see you first. See, here's what I never told anyone at school. My dad wasn't a tech consultant. 3 years ago, he was a high school teacher, my high school. He reported the football coach for abusing players. Not me, other kids. He had proof, recordings, everything. But the coach was beloved. State championships, scholarships, town hero. When dad went public, the town turned on us. Vandalized our house, death threats. My mom divorced him. I had to switch schools my senior year. Lost all my friends. Everyone acted like dad was the villain for ruining kids' futures by exposing the truth. I blamed him too. I was 17 and furious that he chose his principles over our safety, over my normal life. So when I got into college, I erased him. New story, new life. Told everyone he was distant, uninvolved. It was easier than explaining why doing the right thing made him the bad guy. My dad was still standing there on those steps. He said, I know you don't want me here. here. I know I destroyed everything for you, but they're moving forward with criminal charges for trespassing at the coach's trial last month. I violated the restraining order. I'm probably going to jail for a few months. I didn't know any of this. He said, I just needed to tell you I'm sorry. Not for reporting him, I'd do that again. But I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what came after. I'm sorry you had to lie about who I am to survive this place. My throat felt tight. He continued, you wrote in your essay that you overcame distance. Your mom sent it to me. I just wanted you to know I'm proud you built something without me. That's exactly what you should have done. There were students filming now, posting this. My carefully constructed story was dissolving in real time. But something about seeing him there, about hearing him apologize for the consequences instead of the choice, made something crack open in me. I asked why he violated the restraining order. He said, because that coach got acquitted last month. I stood outside that courthouse and I screamed that justice system failed those kids. That's why I'm here now, facing charges for trespassing. He pulled out his phone and showed me messages from 3 of his former students. They were thanking him, saying his testimony helped them finally tell their families what happened, saying even though the coach walked free, someone finally believed them. I realized my dad didn't choose principles over me. He chose protecting kids he'd never see again over protecting himself, and I'd punished him for it by pretending he didn't exist. Campus security approached, told him he had to leave or they'd call the city police. My dad nodded, said, I'm ready. Then he looked at me. You don't have to tell people the truth about me. Whatever makes your life easier. I just needed you to know I see you, and I'm sorry, and I love you. I watched them escort him off campus. Jake came up beside me and asked what was happening. For the first time in 3 years, I told the truth. I said, that's my dad. He's the reason I'm ashamed of doing the right thing.
I thought my little brother was developing a hoarding disorder until I found the calendar hidden under his bed. I came home from college for fall break and noticed my 8-year-old brother's bedroom door was locked. Mason, you in there? He opened it just a crack. His eyes were red. Yeah, hi. Can I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside. The first thing I saw was his closet. It was packed. Granola bars stacked in neat rows, bottles of water, canned soup, peanut butter jars, boxes of crackers, a first aid kit, 3 flashlights, batteries, blankets folded in a corner. My stomach tightened. Mason, what is all this? He looked at the floor. Nothing. This isn't nothing. Why do you have all this food in here? He wouldn't answer. I knelt down to look at him. Hey, talk to me. Are you okay? He just shrugged. I went downstairs and found my parents in the kitchen. Mom was scrolling through her phone. Dad was reading the newspaper. Did you know Mason has been hoarding food in his room? Mom barely looked up. Oh, that. Yeah, we noticed. You noticed? When did this start? Dad sighed. I don't know. A few months ago? We figured it's just a phase. Kids get weird sometimes. This isn't weird. This is concerning. He has like 50 cans of soup in there. Mom finally put her phone down. She looked annoyed. He's probably seen too many of those doomsday videos online. You know how kids are with the internet. Have you talked to him about it? We told him to stop, but he keeps doing it. We'll deal with it. She picked her phone back up. The conversation was over. Over the next 2 days, I watched Mason. He barely left his room. When he did, he'd sneak food from the pantry and smuggle it upstairs in his backpack. I caught him taking batteries from the junk drawer. Mason, seriously, what's going on? Nothing. Leave me alone. His voice cracked. Are you being bullied at school? Is something happening? He shook his head, grabbed the batteries, and ran back to his room. I started Googling child hoarding behavior. Why do kids stockpile food? Everything pointed to anxiety disorders, OCD, trauma from food insecurity. But we weren't food insecure. Our parents both had good jobs. We'd never gone hungry. None of this made sense. On my 3rd night home, I waited until Mason fell asleep. I crept into his room and looked through his closet more carefully. Under a pile of blankets, I found a notebook. I opened it. The first page just said days at the top. Then a list. June 14th, 2 days. June 28th, 3 days. July 19th, 4 days. August 2nd, 5 days. August 30th, 6 days. September 20th, 7 days. My hands started shaking. I flipped to the next page. It was a calendar. Mason had drawn it himself in careful pencil. Certain dates were circled in red. I pulled out my phone and checked those dates against my parents' credit card statements that I still had access to from when I helped them with bills last summer. Every red circle matched up with charges from hotels 2 states away. My throat went tight. I kept looking. There was another page. When they leave again, I need, then a checklist. Water. Food that doesn't need cooking. Blankets in case heat turns off. Batteries for flashlights. Band-aids. Phone charger. I couldn't breathe. The dates were getting longer each time. 2 days, 3 days, 4, 5, 6, 7. They'd been leaving Mason alone for a week at a time, and each trip was longer than the last. I walked downstairs. Mom and Dad were in bed, but their bedroom door was open. I turned on the light. Wake up! Dad jerked awake. What? What's wrong? I threw the notebook onto their bed. What is this? Mom picked it up. Her face went pale. Where did you get this? Mason's room? You've been leaving him alone for a week at a time? We left him with the neighbors. Don't lie to me. My voice was shaking. I checked your credit cards. Hotels. 2 states away. You've been gone. Dad sat up. It's not what you think. Then what is it? Neither of them answered. Mom put the notebook down slowly. We were going to tell you. Tell me what? We're moving. Your father got a new job. We're relocating in January. Okay, so you've been visiting the new place. Why didn't you take Mason? Silence. My stomach dropped. You weren't planning to take him, were you? Mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it. It's complicated. You're abandoning your 8-year-old son. He's not. He's going to stay with your aunt. We already arranged it. Does he know that? More silence. I felt sick. You were just going to leave without telling him, and he figured it out. Dad finally spoke. We were going to explain everything at Christmas. I looked at the notebook still on their bed, at Mason's careful handwriting, at the dates he'd been tracking, at his survival list. He's 8 years old. He knew before I did.
My nephews knocked on my window at 4 a.m., shivering in their pajamas. Their parents had locked them out again. This time, I didn't just let them in. I made one phone call, and their parents' lives changed forever. The tapping woke me at 4:11 a.m., soft, desperate, coming from my bedroom window. I found Leo and Elijah pressed against the glass, 8 and 6 years old, their breath fogging in the November cold. Leo was mouthing something. Uncle Jordan, please. My second-floor window. They'd climbed the trellis. I yanked the window open and pulled them inside. Both were in thin pajamas, soaked through from freezing drizzle. Elijah's lips were blue. Leo's hands were bleeding from the trellis thorns. How long? I asked. Maybe 2 hours. course, Leo whispered. We knocked on the front door first. Dad turned off the porch light and locked the deadbolt from inside. We heard him. We tried the back door. Then we remembered your window. Leo's voice cracked. I checked my phone. Nothing from my sister Vanessa. No missed calls. No texts. This was the third time in 3 months. September. Locked out after Vanessa and Derek fought. The boys waited 90 minutes before calling me. Vanessa apologized. Derek didn't. October. Locked out again after Leo used Derek's iPad without permission. Derek said, they need to learn respect for our rules. But climbing a second-story trellis in near freezing temperatures because their parents wouldn't open a door, I was done. The boys fell asleep around 5:30 a.m. Before they crashed, I documented everything. Photos of their soaked pajamas, Leo's torn hands, Elijah's blue fingers. Metadata, 4:47 a.m., November 21st, 38th degree and with freezing drizzle. Then I recorded Leo. Dad said if we wanted warmth, we should have thought about that before breaking his rules. At 6:15 a.m., I called Child Protective Services. Caseworker Monica Davies arrived by 8:30 a.m. She photographed their injuries and interviewed each boy separately. When she emerged, her professional neutrality had cracked. Mr. Mitchell, forcing children to climb an exterior wall in these conditions is criminal endangerment. The boys remain with you while we investigate. Vanessa called 47 times that morning. I ignored every call. Derek showed up at noon, pounding my door. Where are my sons? He shouted. Safe. Something you couldn't manage. His face turned purple. They climbed up because they're dramatic. It was discipline. They climbed a wet trellis in freezing rain because you turned off the porch light while they begged. Give me my sons right now. CPS has emergency custody. You're going to regret destroying this family. I'm not destroying anything. I'm saving them from you. The emergency hearing happened 72 hours later. Judge Maria Torres studied the photos while their lawyer painted me as vindictive. She held up the image of Leo's bleeding hands. Counselor, your clients are aware their children climbed an exterior wall at 4 a.m. in dangerous conditions, yes? Your Honor, the children made that choice because their parents locked them out in 38-degree weather for the third time in 3 months. This isn't a mistake. It's a pattern. She looked at Derek. Mr. Hayes, you told investigators your sons climbing a trellis proved they needed to respect boundaries. Explain that logic. Derek shifted. They broke house rules. We were teaching responsibility. By forcing them into a life-threatening situation, her voice was ice. Did you consider they could have fallen? Died? Silence. Mrs. Hayes, your youngest is 6. The CPS report states both children are now afraid to sleep because they don't know if you'll lock them out again. Do you understand you've traumatized your own children? Vanessa's face crumpled. I never wanted. Derek said they needed to learn. So you deferred while your children froze outside? The judge closed the file. Emergency custody is granted to Jordan Mitchell. Supervised visitation only. 2 hours weekly. We reconvene in 6 months. 6 months? Vanessa's voice shattered. They're my babies. Then you should have protected them like a mother. The gavel struck. 6 months later, Derek and Vanessa had completed their requirements. Their lawyer stood confidently. Your Honor, my clients have fulfilled every mandate. It's time to reunify this family. Judge Torres looked at Leo and Elijah. Boys, where do you want to live? Leo looked at Vanessa, then Derek, then me. His hand found mine. With Uncle Jordan, Vanessa made a sound like something inside her shattered. Elijah, I want to stay with Jordan. He doesn't lock us out, and he never turns off the lights when we're scared. Judge Torres closed the file. I'm granting permanent custody to Jordan Mitchell. The gavel fell final.
A child in the grocery store pointed at me and told his mom, that's the person from my nightmares. I was reaching for pasta sauce when I heard it. A small voice, maybe 6 years old, clear as a bell in the middle of aisle 7. Mommy, that's the person from my nightmares. I turned around. A little boy was staring at me with eyes so wide I could see the whites all around his pupils. His finger was pointed directly at my chest, and his whole body was trembling. His mother grabbed his hand and pulled it down fast. Ethan, we don't point at people. Apologize. But Ethan wasn't listening. He took 3 steps backward until he hit the shopping cart, never breaking eye contact with me. That's them, the one who comes when I close my eyes. The mother's face went from embarrassed to concerned in half a second. She knelt down next to him. Honey, you've never seen this person before. You're just confused. I have seen them, Ethan insisted, his voice getting higher. Every night, they stand at the end of my bed and watch me sleep. My blood went cold. The mother looked up at me with an apologetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm so sorry. He's been having night terrors. His therapist says it's normal for kids his age. I should have just nodded and walked away. That would have been the normal thing to do. But something about the way Ethan was looking at me, the absolute certainty in his face, made me freeze. What do I look like? I asked him. In your nightmares. His mother stood up quickly. We really don't need to encourage this. But Ethan was already talking, words spilling out like he'd been waiting months to tell someone. You wear the same jacket, the blue one with the tear on the sleeve, and you have that scar on your neck. You never smile. You just stand there and stare at me until I wake up. I look down at my jacket. Blue canvas. Tear on the left sleeve from when I caught it on a fence last month. My hand went to my neck automatically, fingers finding the surgical scar I'd had since I was 12. The mother saw me touch my neck, and her face changed. The polite embarrassment drained away, replaced by something harder. How long has he been having these dreams? I asked. She hesitated, then answered. 3 months, since we moved here. Moved from where? Why does that matter? Just tell me. Sacramento. We moved here 3 months ago. Now if you'll excuse us, what's your address? I interrupted. She pulled Ethan behind her. I'm not giving you our address. Come on, Ethan. Wait. I pulled out my phone and showed her my own address on the screen. Is this your street? Her face went white. How did you know that? Because I live there too. What number? 1847. My hands started shaking. I'm 1849. We're neighbors. The 3 of us stood there in the middle of the grocery store aisle, and I watched her do the same mental math I was doing. Your son has been dreaming about me for 3 months, I said slowly. Since you moved in next door. Ethan was nodding so hard his whole body moved. You're always in my room. You never leave. His mother's voice came out strained. Ethan's bedroom faces the street. 2nd floor, corner room. My stomach dropped. That's directly across from my bedroom window. She grabbed her son's shoulders. What do you mean across from? Our houses are close together. Maybe 30 feet between us. My bedroom window lines up perfectly with a window on your 2nd floor. I pulled up my photos and found one I'd taken last week of the sunset from my bedroom. In the background, you could clearly see the house next door. 2nd floor corner window. She looked at the photo, then at me, then at her son, and I watched her face cycle through denial, confusion, and then pure horror as she understood. You're a sleepwalker, she whispered. The word hit me like ice water. I'd been a sleepwalker since childhood. Violent, vivid episodes that my ex-girlfriend said were terrifying to witness. I'd wake up in my kitchen, my car, once even in my backyard in the middle of winter. But I lived alone now. There was no one to tell me where I went anymore. I installed blackout curtains last month, I said quietly. Before Before that, I never closed my blinds. The mother's hands were shaking now. So for 3 months, you've been standing in my window, at night, sleepwalking, staring out at nothing. Ethan's voice was small. You're always so still, like a statue. I thought you were a ghost. I looked at this kid who'd been watching me every night, watching me stand motionless in my window in some kind of sleep fugue state, thinking I was a nightmare come to life. I'm so sorry, I said. His mother was still processing. You didn't know you were doing it. I never know. That's the problem. I left my cart in the aisle and walked straight to Home Depot, bought the thickest blackout curtains they had, and installed them before the sun went down. I also started sleeping with a motion-activated camera pointed at my bedroom door. Haven't sleepwalked since, but Ethan's mother texted me last week that he finally slept through the night without waking up screaming. The nightmare was never supernatural. It was just me, trapped in my own head, scaring a child without ever knowing I was awake.
I wanted to divorce my husband after I found out he trash-talked me to his friends and said marrying me was a mistake. We'd been together for almost 8 years. Met in college, moved in together after graduation, got married at 26. Nothing fancy, just a small wedding at his parents' backyard with maybe 40 people. I thought we were solid. We had our routines. Coffee together every morning before work, takeout on Fridays, hiking on Sundays when the weather was decent. Last month, I came home early from a work trip. My boss canceled the last day of meetings, so instead of flying back Saturday morning, I got a Thursday night flight. I texted my husband that I'd be home late and not to wait up. When I pulled into our driveway around 11, I noticed the living room lights were on and heard voices through the open window. His friends were over. Nothing weird about that. They did poker nights sometimes. I grabbed my suitcase and was about to head inside when I heard my name. I froze on the porch steps. One of his buddies was laughing about something, and then my husband said it. Dude, I'm serious. Marrying her was probably the biggest mistake I've made. His friend must have said something because my husband kept going. No, I mean it. She's boring as hell. We don't even have fun anymore. She just wants to stay home and watch TV. My stomach dropped. I stood there like an idiot, holding my suitcase, trying to process what I was hearing. Another friend asked if he was thinking about leaving, and my husband went quiet for a second before saying, I don't know, man. Sometimes I think about it, but it's complicated, you know? The house, the dog, all our stuff is mixed together. Then they started talking about some woman from his gym. Apparently, he'd been talking to her for weeks. Nothing physical yet, he said, but he admitted he was interested. His friends were hyping him up, telling him to go for it, that life's too short to be stuck with someone who doesn't excite you anymore. I wanted to storm inside and confront him right there, but I couldn't move. My hands were shaking too much. Instead, I quietly walked back to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and just stared at the dashboard for like 20 minutes. I drove to my friend Nicole's apartment. She opened the door in her pajamas, took one look at my face, and let me in without asking questions. I told her everything. She was furious. She wanted to drive over there and yell at him herself, but I told her not to. I needed time to think. The next morning, my husband texted asking where I was. I told him I'd stayed at Nicole's because I got in late and didn't want to wake him. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. That was it. Not even a question about my trip. I went home that afternoon while he was at work. I packed a bag with enough clothes and stuff for a week, grabbed some important documents from the filing cabinet, and left. I texted him that I needed space and would explain later. He called me 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. Finally, he sent a long text asking what was going on, saying I was being dramatic and needed to come home so we could talk like adults. That night, I met him at a coffee shop near our place. He showed up looking annoyed like I was wasting his time. He asked what this was about and I just said it. I heard you. Thursday night, I heard everything you said to your friends. His face went completely white. He tried to backtrack immediately, saying it wasn't what it sounded like, that he was just venting, that guys say stupid things when they're together. I asked him if he meant it when he called marrying me a mistake. He stuttered for a second before saying he was just frustrated because we'd been arguing more lately. We hadn't been arguing. That was a lie, and we both knew it. I told him I wanted a divorce. He actually laughed, like he thought I was joking. When he realized I was serious, he got defensive. He said I was overreacting, that I couldn't just throw away 8 years over one conversation. I asked him about the woman from the gym. He denied it at first, then admitted they'd been texting but insisted it was just friendly. I left the coffee shop while he was still talking. The next few days were a mess. He kept calling and showing up at Nicole's place, begging me to come home. He sent flowers to my office with a card that said he was sorry and wanted to work things out. My coworkers thought it was sweet. I threw them in the trash. I hired a lawyer the following week. My husband couldn't believe it when he got served with the papers. He called me crying, saying he'd made a mistake, that he didn't mean any of it, that he loved me and wanted to fix things. But I was done. You don't accidentally call your wife boring and say marrying her was a mistake. You don't accidentally talk about other women you're interested in. Those weren't things you say when you're just blowing off steam. The divorce took about 4 months to finalize.
My sister scheduled her wedding on my graduation day. She got the attention she wanted, when no one showed up. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Not just college, but medical school. 8 years of absolute hell working 3 jobs while studying, living on ramen and 4 hours of sleep, missing every family vacation because I had exams or hospital rotations. My parents always said they were proud, but they never really understood why I put myself through it when I could have just gotten married, like my sister Rachel did at 19. Rachel dropped out of community college after 1 semester to marry her boyfriend Todd, who sold insurance. She spent the next 7 years having 3 kids and complaining about how hard her life was while I was pulling 36-hour shifts at the hospital. When I finally matched into my residency program, I called my family with my graduation date circled in red on my calendar, May 15th. I'd already bought my parents their plane tickets as a surprise. My mom cried on the phone saying she couldn't wait to see me walk across that stage. 2 weeks later, Rachel called me screaming with excitement about her news. She and Todd were renewing their vows for their 8th anniversary and having the big wedding they never got to have. The date? May 15th. I told her that was my graduation day, and she said I'd had plenty of graduations before, so missing one wouldn't kill me. When I reminded her this was medical school, not some random ceremony, she said I was being selfish, trying to make her change her date when she'd already put down deposits. She actually said my graduation was just a boring ceremony, but her wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I asked her what about her first wedding, and she hung up on me. Rachel immediately called our parents crying about how I was trying to ruin her special day. She told them I demanded she change everything just so people would pay attention to me. She said I'd always been jealous of her beautiful family and was trying to sabotage her happiness. My mom called me disappointed, saying Rachel already paid for the venue and it would be such a waste of money to change it. My dad said I could just get my diploma mailed to me. They chose her wedding. I said I understood completely and wished Rachel all the best. Then I got strategic. First, I called my extended family personally to let them know about my graduation. My aunts, uncles, cousins, and everyone who'd watched me struggle through school. I told them how much it would mean to have them there since this was such a huge accomplishment. Said that every single one of them already knew about Rachel's wedding, but when they heard it was the same day as me becoming a doctor, they all said they'd rather come to my graduation. My uncle, who paid for some of my textbooks, said he wouldn't miss seeing his investment pay off. My grandmother, whom Rachel was counting on to pay for the flowers, said she'd rather see her granddaughter become a doctor than watch Rachel get married again to the same man. Then I reached out to all our family friends, the ones who'd known us since we were kids. I told them how excited I was to finally be done after 8 years of sacrifice. They all picked my graduation. Even Rachel's own godmother said she'd already been to one of Rachel's and didn't need to see another. The best part was when I called Todd's parents. They'd always felt bad that they missed my white coat ceremony because of one of Rachel's tantrums. When they heard she scheduled her vow renewal over my medical school graduation, Todd's mom was furious. She said Rachel was selfish and they'd be at my graduation to support someone who actually accomplished something. 2 weeks before the big day, Rachel realized her guest list had shrunk from 150 to about 20 people. She called me. I called my adoptive mom Mom instead of her name for the first time. I got adopted when I was 13. Her name's Diana, and I've called her that since day one. Not in a disrespectful way, just that's what felt right. She never pushed it either. She told me early on I could use her name. I think she knew I wasn't ready for the mom thing. Diana's a middle school art teacher. When I first moved in, she had this extra bedroom set up. Desk by the window, plain walls so I could decorate, however. Good Wi-Fi. She got it. We developed this routine pretty quick. She'd make breakfast, I'd do dishes, she'd ask about school, I'd give her the basics. She never pried. It was comfortable, but I still called her Diana. I'm 21 now. I stayed after aging out because Diana just kept treating me like I lived there, helped me apply to community college, co-signed my car loan, showed up to my graduation. Last Christmas, she got me a coffee maker because she noticed I was spending too much at the campus cafe. But I still called her Diana. It became this thing between us that wasn't really a thing. 3 weeks ago, I came home for spring break around 11 p.m. The house was dark except the porch light. I dumped my bag and went to grab water. That's when I heard this thud from Diana's room. I knocked. Diana, you good? Nothing. I opened the door. She was on the floor next to her bed, kind of folded on her side. Her eyes were half open but unfocused. I dropped down next to her. Diana, can you hear me? She made this groan but didn't really look at me. I grabbed her phone and called 911. My hands were shaking. The dispatcher asked what was wrong and I barely knew what to say. They asked about medical conditions and I remembered Diana's diabetic, type 1. The dispatcher told me to check for glucose tablets. I found them in her nightstand, got one in her mouth. She kind of sucked on it but didn't chew. The ambulance was 4 minutes out. Those 4 minutes felt like forever. I was sitting there with her head in my lap and she was doing this shallow breathing that scared me. I kept talking because I didn't know what else to do. You're gonna be fine, just stay with me, okay? And then it just came out. Mom, please be okay. I said it again. Mom, come on, stay awake. She didn't respond. Her eyes stayed half closed. I didn't even register what I'd said. I was just trying to keep her conscious. The paramedics got there and took over. Her blood sugar was 40-something. They got an IV in, gave her glucose. She started coming around in the ambulance. By the time we got to the hospital, she was talking again. Annoyed they wouldn't let her walk. They kept her overnight. I stayed in one of those awful hospital chairs. Around 6 a.m., she was back to normal, arguing with the nurse about staying. When the nurse left, Diana looked at me. You called me Mom. I sat up, brain foggy. What? Last night, when you found me, you called me Mom. She had this look I couldn't read. I heard you. I thought she'd been completely out. You were awake? Sort of. In and out. I couldn't respond, but I could hear you. She was quiet. You said it twice. My throat felt tight. She squeezed my hand. I've been waiting 8 years to hear that. I started crying. Not sobbing, just tears. She was crying too. You didn't have to wait for me to almost die, I said, voice cracking. Worth it, she said. The doctor cleared her to go home. We stopped at the diner and got pancakes. When the food came, I looked at her and said, thanks, Mom. She smiled. Didn't make a big deal. Just smiled and said, you're welcome, sweetie. I called her yesterday about a recipe. When she picked up, I said, hey, Mom, quick question. She didn't say anything for a second, then answered like normal, but I could hear her smiling through the phone. I told my SIL to get fucked and that my kids are allowed inside. My brother got married to this woman named Krista 3 years ago, and she's been a pain since day one. She's one of those people who thinks having a clean house means you're better than everyone else. Her place always smells like bleach, and she's got those white couches that nobody's allowed to sit on. We host Thanksgiving every year at my parents' house. It's been that way forever. My mom does the turkey, I bring sides, my brother brings drinks, the whole deal. This year, Krista decided she wanted to host instead. She sent this long group group text about how she wanted to start new traditions and make it special. Fine, whatever. My mom wasn't thrilled, but she said okay. The day before Thanksgiving, Krista texts me. She says the kids need to stay home. I've got 3 kids, aged 5, 7, and 9. She said her house isn't childproof and she doesn't want anything broken or stained. I called her immediately. I asked if she was serious. She said yes, completely serious. She'd already told my brother and he agreed with her. I told her that was insane. You don't invite someone to Thanksgiving and tell them to leave their kids at home. She said I could get a babysitter on Thanksgiving for the whole day. I laughed and said we weren't coming then. She got all huffy and said I was being dramatic, that the adults deserved one nice holiday without chaos. My kids aren't even that wild. They're normal kids. They know how to use forks and not draw on walls. I told my parents what happened. My dad was pissed. He said if my kids weren't welcome, then he wasn't going either. My mom agreed. Krista started backtracking real quick when she realized half the family was bailing. She sent another group text saying maybe we could compromise. The kids could come, but they had to stay in the basement, the unfinished basement, with concrete floors and nothing down there except some storage boxes. I didn't even respond to that one. Thanksgiving morning, my parents called and said, forget Krista's house, come over here. So we did. My mom pulled out the turkey she'd bought just in case. We had Thanksgiving at their place like usual. My brother showed up around 2, without Krista. He looked tired. He asked why we didn't come to his house. I said because your wife uninvited my children to Thanksgiving. He tried to say she didn't mean it like that. I cut him off and said she absolutely meant it exactly like that. She wanted a kid-free holiday and that's fine, but we're not doing holidays with her anymore. He left pretty quickly after that. About a week later, there's a Christmas party at my parents' house. Just a casual thing, nothing fancy. Krista shows up with my brother. My kids are running around with my cousin's kids, playing with some toys in the living room, normal stuff. Krista pulls me aside in the kitchen. She says she needs to talk to me. She starts going off about how I turned the family against her, how she was just trying to have one nice event and I ruined it by being selfish. I let her finish. Then I told her to get fucked and that my kids are allowed inside my parents' house whenever they want. I said if she had a problem with children existing in shared spaces, then she shouldn't come to family events. She turned red and stormed out. My brother followed her. My mom asked what happened and I told her. She just shook her head and said Krista needed to get over herself. My brother tried calling me the next day. I didn't answer. He sent a text saying Krista was hurt and I owed her an apology. I texted back that she owed my kids an apology for trying to exclude them from a family holiday. He didn't respond. Christmas came and went. They didn't show up to my parents' house. My dad said my brother told him they'd be doing their own thing from now on. Fine by me. At my engagement party, my mother pulled my fiancé's parents aside and said, "You should know she's not really mine." I found them in the kitchen 20 minutes after Blake's parents arrived at the restaurant's private room we'd rented for 30 guests. My mother had cornered them by the dessert table and was showing them something on her phone. "What's going on?" I walked over, but my mother quickly put her phone in her purse. Blake's mother, Kendall, looked uncomfortable, and his father, Robert, wouldn't make eye contact with me. "I was just sharing family history with your future in-laws. They deserve to know what they're getting into." My mother's voice had that sweet tone she used when she was being vicious. What family history? I felt my stomach drop because I knew exactly what she'd done. She'd been angry all week because I'd asked Blake's sister to be my maid of honor instead of my sister Kimberly. "Oh, just the truth about your origins. The Hamptons should know their grandchildren won't actually be biologically connected to our family." Blake came over with drinks and noticed the tension. "What's happening?" His mother took the drink with shaking hands. "Your mother was just telling us that Olivia is adopted. She showed us the adoption papers." Blake looked confused because I'd never told him. We'd only been together 8 months and it had never come up. "You're adopted?" My mother laughed. She doesn't like to talk about it. Embarrassed, I think. Her birth mother was a drug addict who got pregnant at 15. We got Olivia when she was 3 days old. Cost us $40,000 in legal fees, but we wanted to do something charitable. She said charitable like I was a tax write-off. "Mom, stop." But she was already walking toward the main room where everyone else was mingling. "I should tell everyone else too. They're all going to wonder why you look nothing like our family." Blake's father finally spoke. "This is inappropriate. Being adopted doesn't change anything." My mother spun around with fake shock. "Doesn't change anything?" Of course it does. Mental illness runs in her birth family. Her biological uncle is in prison. Her birth mother overdosed when Olivia was 5. These are things you need to know before you marry her. She wasn't even trying to whisper anymore. My Aunt Helen came over with my sister. "What's all this noise about?" My mother grabbed Helen's arm. "I was just explaining to the Hamptons about Olivia's real family. Remember when we had to get her tested for all those genetic disorders because we had no medical history?" Helen looked mortified. "Louise, that's private medical information." But my mother was building momentum. "Private? She's marrying into the Hampton family. They own half the commercial real estate in the city. They deserve full disclosure about her background." She turned to Blake. "Did she tell you her biological father was never identified?" "Could be anyone. The birth mother had multiple partners." Blake stepped between us. "Mrs. Coleman, you need to stop talking about Olivia this way." My mother's eyes narrowed. "I'm the one who raised her, fed her, clothed her, spent $300,000 on her education. I'll talk about her however I want. She's not even grateful. Chose your sister over Kimberly for maid of honor after everything our family has done for her." There it was. The real reason for this performance. My sister stood there smirking. "I told you she'd react this way, Mom." "Olivia's always been ungrateful. We gave her everything and she still acts like she's better than us." My mother pulled out her phone again. "Look, I have pictures of her birth mother from the adoption agency." Olivia looks exactly like her. Same nose, same mouth, nothing like our family.
People who've been kidnapped. What happened next? After my parents divorced, my mom went through a few boyfriends before she met Brad. The first time I saw him, I remember thinking he looked like he walked straight off a movie set. He had a perfect smile, treated me like a princess, and I thought my mom finally found the one. Even when my friend Stella from school went missing, he was there to comfort me and told me he'd never let anything like that happen to me. Then as my mom was late for work, he offered to drive me to school. I was excited because this meant he was finally becoming more of an actual dad to me. We pulled out of the driveway, and as we waved goodbye to my mom, I was just hoping she was gonna realize he was a keeper. But as soon as we drove away, I watched his smile completely disappear. I said, "What's wrong?" But he just stared straight ahead at the road, completely silent, like I wasn't even there. I started feeling uncomfortable, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was stressed out or something. Then we drove right past my school. I watched it go by through the window, and I actually started to get nervous. "Hey, I think we just passed the exit," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "This will just take a second." I didn't know what that meant. I tried to laugh it off, tried to convince myself there was some logical explanation, but a few minutes later we pulled into this random gas station, and a man I'd never seen before opened the back door and got in. He was older, maybe in his 40s, and he looked at me in a way that made me feel like throwing up in my mouth. I turned to Brad, hoping for some kind of reassurance, but his face was still completely empty. "Brad, who is this? I'm scared. I want to go home." That's when I felt it. Something metal pressing into my side. I was about to scream, but he put a hand over my mouth. "Hey, don't do anything dumb." But I literally had no idea who this guy was. I looked over at Brad with tears starting to form in my eyes, but he didn't even care. It was like he was a completely different person. The only phone I had was the Nokia in my backpack, and since it was in the back seat, there was no way I could grab it. We started driving again, but now we were heading in the complete opposite direction of my school. I watched familiar streets turn into unfamiliar ones. I saw the sign that said we were leaving town, and I was starting to think my life was ending. My whole body was shaking, but I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. But as we pulled up to the last stoplight before the highway, completely leaving our town, I saw the car pull up next to us. I looked over and instantly noticed the lights mounted onto the roof. It was a police car. The guy in the back instantly whispered, "Don't even think about it." But I knew this was my only chance. I knew once we got on that highway, it was over. Whatever they had planned for me would happen, and no one would be able to stop it. I was praying they'd see me, but as they forced me to look ahead, the light turned green. No, no, no. Brad started to accelerate, and I knew I had seconds before I'd never see my mom again. I made my decision, and I grabbed the door handle and flung the door open. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, and without thinking, I just jumped out of the car while it was moving. I scraped my back and arms really bad, but literal seconds after I did, I watched that police car light up, and they turned around to help me. The police caught Brad and that other loser, and it turns out that the entire time he comforted me from losing Stella, he was keeping her locked in a basement.
"We're not married. You don't own me," she said at the bar when I asked why she gave her number to the bartender. I nodded and moved out while she was at a club. She came home to half-empty rooms and a note saying, "You're right, I don't." Friday night at Murphy's with our usual group. Me, my girlfriend Emma, her friend Rachel, my buddy Mike. Normal Friday. Couple drinks, some wings. Emma's at the bar getting another round. I'm watching her laugh with the bartender, touching his arm, flipping her hair. She comes back with her phone out, smiling at the screen. "New friend?" I ask. She doesn't look up. "Just the bartender. He's funny." "Cool. What's his name?" "Tyler." "Why does it matter?" Mike's studying his phone. Rachel's suddenly fascinated by her drink. "It doesn't." "Oh my god, here we go." She's loud now. People at the next table glance over. "We're not married, okay? You don't own me. I can talk to whoever I want." "I didn't say you couldn't. You're doing that controlling thing where you ask questions like, 'You're my dad.'" "I asked his name, Emma. We're not married. You don't get a say in who I talk to or who I give my number to." The table goes silent. "You gave him your number?" She laughs. "Mean. Yes, because we're not married and you don't own me. We're just dating." I pick up my beer and finish it. "You know what? You're right." She blinks. "What?" "You're right. We're not married. You can do whatever you want." I stand up. "I'm heading out." "Are you serious right now?" "Yeah, I'm tired." I pull out my wallet, drop $40. That should cover my half. I walk out. My heart's pounding so hard I feel it in my throat. It's not the bartender. It's the third time this month. 2 weeks ago, she forgot our dinner plans for happy hour. Last week, Instagram story at some guy's apartment at 2 a.m. Just friends. Stop being paranoid. When I asked her to meet my parents, she said, "That's too much pressure." And labels are weird. But when her car needed new tires, suddenly we were serious enough that I could chip in half. I drive home to our apartment, the one we've shared for 8 months. She's not there. Texted the group she was hitting club vibe. I sit on the couch and look around. The couch is mine. I bought it 3 years ago. The TV, PlayStation, coffee table, mine. Bed frame, mine. The mattress we split, but I paid 70%. Bathroom, my towels, shower curtain, bath mat. I pay 60% of rent. Internet, electric, water, all in my name. I look at the time, 10:47 p.m. She won't be home until 2 a.m. minimum. I text Mike. I need a huge favor. Mike shows up at 11:30 with his truck. "What's going on?" "I'm moving out tonight." He stares at me, then nods. "Where do we start?" We start with the living room. Couch, TV, bookshelf, gaming chair, bedroom. I strip my side completely. The room looks lopsided now, half dressed. "Dude, this is crazy," Mike says, still helping. She doesn't want to be tied down, so I'm untying her. Kitchen, the coffee maker, mine. She uses it every morning. Good knives, mine. Cast iron pan, mine. I leave her the cheap plastic Target stuff. "You're taking the coffee maker?" Mike asks. I paid for it. It's 1:15 a.m. The apartment looks bombed. Her furniture, empty spaces where mine were. I find paper and pen. Try writing a note 3 times. Finally settle on, "You're right, I don't." Perfect. It's everything she said. Agreed with completely. I leave it on the counter with my key on top. We walk out at 1:43 a.m. Her phone starts ringing at 3:17 a.m. I'm on Mike's couch when it lights up. Emma calling. I silence it. Text. "Where are you? What the fuck? Did you take the couch? Are you kidding me right now?" I turn my phone face down. More messages flood in. "This is so immature. We need to talk. You can't just leave. Did you seriously take the TV and coffee maker?" I block her number. The group chat explodes. Rachel. "What the hell did you do?" Mike. "He left. Maybe ask Emma why." Rachel. "He moved out in the middle of the night like a coward." Mike. "He moved out while she was at the club for the 3rd weekend in a row." I mute the whole thing. 3 days later, she calls from someone else's phone. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About you leaving. Taking everything." "I took my stuff, Emma. We share everything." "No, you use my stuff. There's a difference." Silence. Then, "I can't believe you're being like this. So cold. Over one stupid comment." "It wasn't one comment. I was drunk. You gave your number to another guy. It wasn't like that." "What was it like then?" She doesn't have an answer. "When's my birthday, Emma?" "What? My birthday?" When is it? She's quiet. July, something. August 12th. We've been together 3 years. I pause. What's my middle name? Stop it. You don't know me. You know the version that's useful. The one who pays for shit and doesn't ask questions. That's not true. Do you love me? Or do you love having me around? She doesn't answer. You've been checking out for months. You wanted all the benefits without commitment. That's fine. But it's not what I want. She's crying now. What do you want? I want someone who's sure about me. Someone who doesn't make me feel crazy for having expectations. I hang up. 2 months later, I saw her at a mutual friend's party with someone new. Tall guy with a beard. She saw me. Her face did this thing. Surprise, then anger, then sadness. I nodded. She nodded back. Mike materialized next to me with a beer. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. You look lighter. That's what leaving dead weight does.
My wife told her friends he acts like I can't function without him, so I stopped functioning for her. I was putting groceries away when I heard her laugh through the baby monitor we'd left on in the bedroom. She was video calling her sister and 2 friends, and apparently I was the entertainment. He acts like I can't function without him, she said, like I'm some helpless child who needs supervision. The way she said it stung, because I'd just spent my Saturday replacing her car battery in the rain while she slept in. I handled everything. Her dentist appointments because she'd forget until the tooth hurt. Her car registration before the late fees hit. Her mother's birthday gift because showing up empty-handed would somehow become my fault. Oil changes, software updates, prescription refills, the HOA violation notice about our mailbox. All of it. But asking, did you call the insurance company back? Made me a helicopter husband. Her friend Lauren laughed. Girl, mine's the same. Like we're not capable adults. They swapped stories about overbearing husbands while I stood in the kitchen, realizing I was a villain in a story I didn't recognize. 7 years married, and I was the antagonist for keeping our lives from falling apart. The next morning confirmed it. She mentioned her performance review was coming up. I almost reminded her to update her portfolio, then stopped. That would be treating her like she can't function. Tuesday, her car made a grinding noise. I heard it, but said nothing. That evening, she told Lauren, he didn't even notice. He's so checked out lately. When I was involved, I was suffocating. When I wasn't, I didn't care. If being helpful meant being condescending, I'd stop being helpful. If she wanted to prove she could function without me, I'd give her the space to demonstrate it. Thursday, she asked if I'd scheduled our dinner reservation for her parents' anniversary. I thought you'd handle it, I said. Saturday, she couldn't find the insurance cards. Check the glove box, I said. They weren't there. I'd reorganized them into the folder I always kept in the console. I didn't mention it. She missed her dentist appointment. Late fee. Her car registration expired. Ticket. The grinding noise became a $900 brake job because she drove on it for 2 weeks. I watched it all happen, saying nothing. Why didn't you remind me? I didn't want to treat you like you can't function. 2 weeks in, her mom called asking why they hadn't heard from us. Ask Kelsey, I said. She handles that stuff now. Kelsey hadn't realized I was the one maintaining those relationships, sending birthday texts from us, coordinating the monthly dinners. The HOA sent a second notice with a fine. The pharmacy called about her prescription. Her boss emailed asking if everything was okay because she'd missed the portfolio deadline. Then came Sunday, her sister's baby shower. She'd been talking about it for months. What time are we leaving? She asked that morning. Leaving for what? Meredith's shower. It's at 2. I didn't realize I was invited. Of course you're invited. You always come to family things. You should probably check the gift situation too. Her face went white. You didn't get a gift? I didn't want to act like you couldn't function. I assumed you'd handle it. She checked the time. 11:47. The shower was 2 hours away. Stores opened at noon on Sunday. She scrambled. Target. Wrapped in the car with drugstore paper. We arrived 40 minutes late. Her sister hugged everyone except us. Her mother gave me a look that could strip paint. Kelsey spent the shower apologizing. On the drive home, silent. Then, you did this on purpose. I gave you exactly what you said you wanted. You knew about the shower. I've known for 2 months. I had a gift purchased in October, but that would be treating you like you can't function. More silence. You heard the call with Lauren. I hear all of them. The baby monitor's been on for 3 weeks. The dentist, the car, my mom, the shower. You just let it all fall apart. I let you handle it. Every appointment I remembered, every deadline I tracked, every relationship I maintained, that was partnership. But you needed to tell your friends how suffocating I was. The brake job, the ticket, the late fees, the embarrassment at the shower, her damaged relationship with her sister, the missed work deadline, all of it, piled up in 3 weeks. I can't do this alone, I know. But you're discovering why I was doing half of it. I don't want to function without you. Then stop telling people I treat you like a child. If I hear it again, you'll handle everything yourself permanently. She nodded. The game was over. Sometimes people don't appreciate what you do until you stop doing it.
I lost weight for my friend's wedding, although I'm already the skinny friend. So my friend Rachel got engaged back in December and asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was excited because I'd never done that before. But here's the thing. Over the past 3 years, I'd gained about 2 dress sizes, and it was starting to bug me. Nothing crazy, I just felt off. So when Rachel asked me to be in her wedding, I figured why not use that as my deadline to get back in shape. I always do better when I have a specific goal to work toward. I started going to the gym 4 times a week, cut out the late night snacks, and honestly, it was going pretty well. I dropped the weight over a few months and felt way better. I didn't make some big announcement about it because it wasn't anyone's business. I just did my thing. Fast forward to last weekend. We had an appointment to try on bridesmaid dresses. There's me, Rachel, her cousin Janet, and this girl Kristen, who's her coworker. The whole time Rachel was acting weird. She kept talking over me when I'd say something, giving me these side-eye looks, just being cold. Janet and Kristen didn't seem to notice, so I thought maybe she was just stressed about wedding planning. After the appointment, I asked Rachel if she wanted to come hang out like we usually do. We live 10 minutes apart and we always grab food or watch a movie after stuff like this. She literally scoffed at me and said she was going home. I asked what was wrong and she completely lost it right there in the parking lot. She started yelling about how I was clearly trying to upstage her at her own wedding, that I was already the skinny friend and now I was making it worse on purpose. She said I never cleared my weight loss with her and that I knew what I was doing was wrong because I was still wearing baggy clothes to hide it. I wasn't hiding anything. I just hadn't bought new clothes yet and I like being comfortable. Who wears tight stuff to go bridesmaid dress shopping? I tried to explain that I'd been working on this since before she even got engaged, but she wasn't hearing it. She said I thought I was better than her, that when we go out together, guys only look at me and never at her, which is insane because Rachel is really pretty and I'm just average. Then she hit me with the absolute wildest thing. She told me her ex-boyfriend Greg was going to be at the wedding. Apparently he'd been thinking about leaving his fiancée to ask me out, but Rachel talked talked him out of it. I had zero idea any of this happened, and honestly, it made me want to throw up. That's so weird. And also, he's her ex. Why would I ever? The whole thing made it obvious she's still hung up on this guy, even though he literally just got married to someone else. Then Rachel told me I was uninvited from the wedding unless I gained the weight back. If I did that, I could come, but not as a bridesmaid anymore. I just stood there staring at her because what do you even say to that? She got in her car and drove off. I called Janet later and told her what happened. She said Rachel had been making comments about my weight for weeks in their group chat. Stuff like asking if I was sick or if something was wrong with me. Janet thought it was concern, but now we both know it wasn't. I'm not going to the wedding.
My dad called the night before my surgery. Don't expect us to visit. You brought this on yourself. The anesthesiologist was explaining the risks. My phone lit up. Dad calling. I almost let it go to voicemail. But Dr. Lillian Kerrigan paused mid-sentence. 32 years practicing anesthesiology at Boston Memorial. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The type of person who actually cared. Take it, she said softly. Family's important before major surgery. I answered on the third ring. Stepped into the hallway outside the pre-op consultation room. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that sickly hospital glow. Makes everyone look half dead already. Nathan. My father's voice was cold. Clipped. Not the voice of a man calling to wish his son well before having his chest cracked open. I'm calling because your mother insisted. But I want to be clear. Don't expect us to visit tomorrow. The line went dead. I stood there in the hallway. Phone pressed to my ear, listening to silence. A nurse walked past, pushing a medication cart. Somewhere down the corridor, a machine beeped steadily. My hands started shaking, not from fear of the surgery, from the casual cruelty of those words. You brought this on yourself. I was 31 years old, about to undergo emergency valve replacement surgery. My heart was literally failing, and my father had just told me I deserved it. I'd been living with unexplained symptoms for 6 years. Started small, easy to dismiss. Fatigue that lingered no matter how much I slept. Shortness of breath climbing stairs. Heart palpitations like a fish thrashing in my chest. I was 25, working as a software engineer in Cambridge, running 3 miles every morning before work. Young, healthy, invincible. When I mentioned the exhaustion to my parents, Sunday dinner at their Newton estate, my mother waved it off. You work too much, sweetheart. That's what happens when you stare at screens all day. My father, Arthur Whitmore, CFO of Whitmore Capital Management, barely looked up from his ribeye. Your generation doesn't understand what real work looks like. By 27, I was seeing doctors regularly. My primary care physician, Dr. Raymond Okonkwo, Nigerian immigrant, medical degree from Johns Hopkins, 15 years of family practice experience, ran every standard test. Blood work came back normal. EKG showed minor irregularities. Nothing alarming. Probably stress, he said, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Try meditation. Cut back on caffeine. I followed his advice religiously. Quit coffee. Started therapy. Practiced yoga. The symptoms got worse. My younger sister Olivia noticed first. 28, pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. Always been the empathetic one. We met for lunch on a Saturday, October 2022. Small cafe in Harvard Square. I'd walked 3 blocks from my apartment, arrived winded, sweating despite the cool autumn air. Jesus, Nathan, she said, standing to hug me. You look terrible. I collapsed into the chair across from her, heart still racing from the walk. Not really sleeping. The palpitations are getting worse. She frowned, reached across the table to feel my pulse. Her fingers pressed against my wrist, counting. After 30 seconds, her frown deepened. Your heart rate is elevated. Have you told Dr. Okonkwo? I nodded. He says it's anxiety. Olivia pulled back, her nurse instincts clearly screaming something different. Nathan, this isn't anxiety. You need a cardiologist. That conversation changed everything. Olivia pushed me to see Dr. Parara, chief of cardiology at Massachusetts General Hospital, 43 years old, credentials covering an entire wall of his office. He ordered an echocardiogram, stress test, Holter monitor. The results came back in early November. Dr. Parara called me personally, asked me to come in immediately. His office overlooked the Charles River, boats frozen in their slips for winter. He didn't make small talk. Mr. Whitmore, your mitral valve is severely prolapsed. The regurgitation is causing your heart to work 3 times harder than it should. He paused. Frankly, I'm surprised you're still conscious most days. The medical terminology washed over me, but the core message landed like a punch. My heart was failing, had been failing for years. How long? I asked. How long have I had this? Dr. Parara pulled up my echocardiogram images on his computer, pointed to the valve's abnormal movement. Based on the degree of damage and your symptom timeline, I'd estimate this has been progressing for at least 5 to 6 years, possibly longer. 6 years. 6 years of being told I was stressed, anxious, dramatic. 6 years of my parents dismissing my symptoms as weakness. Is it genetic? I asked. He nodded slowly. Mitral valve prolapse can be hereditary. Yes. Then he asked the question that made everything shift. Does anyone in your family have a history of heart conditions? I thought about family medical history, realized I knew almost nothing. My parents had always been intensely private about health matters, and that's when I understood there was something they'd been hiding. Full story is linked below or on my channel.
Mark slammed his luxury car door and strutted into the bustling, fast casual restaurant, his phone pressed to his ear. I don't care about the merger issues. Just fix it, he barked before cutting the line. He shoved past a young delivery guy, Alex, who was carefully organizing hot food bags on a counter. Out of the way, help. Some of us have real jobs. Alex, in his simple red delivery uniform and cap, simply nodded and continued his work. Mark approached the counter where Ella, the manager, was helping another customer. I need the avocado chicken bowl now, and make sure it's perfect. I have a client lunch. Sir, there's a line, Ella said calmly, gesturing behind him. Mark scoffed, not moving. My time is worth more than theirs. Just get me my food. From behind him, a calm voice spoke. Your order is actually ready. It was Alex, the delivery guy. He held out a marked bag. Avocado chicken bowl, extra cilantro, no onions. Just how you always get it, Mr. Henderson. Mark snatched the bag, sneering. Took you long enough to be useful. Don't you have some pizza to deliver to a trailer park? Alex just smiled faintly as Mark stormed to a table, where he immediately complained the avocado was underripe. He waved Ella over, demanding to see the owner. This is unacceptable. I want this entire place comped for my inconvenience. Ella sighed, looking past him. Sir, the owner is right here. Mark turned, expecting a suited businessman. Instead, Alex was walking over, slowly removing his red delivery cap. He unzipped his uniform jacket to reveal a simple but sharp business shirt underneath. Alex Kensington, the young man said. Extending a hand Mark was too stunned to shake. I own this location and the 12 others in the city. I spend 1 day a week doing deliveries. It's the best way to meet my real bosses, my customers. You, Mark Henderson, are my 11:30 a.m. drop-off every Tuesday. Your assistant orders for you. Mark's face flushed purple. You're the owner? But you're just a guy who knows that a business is built by the people who carry the bags. Make the food and clean the tables, Alex finished. You've been rude to my staff for months. Your company's big merger? That's with my venture capital firm. We just pulled the funding this morning after I reviewed your partners' conduct reports. The client you're about to impress. He's my uncle. He just texted me that he's leaving. Mark stood utterly alone in the crowded restaurant, holding the bag of food he could no longer afford. Alex turned to Ella. Please prepare a fresh meal for the gentleman in line behind. Mr. Henderson, his lunch is on the house today. True worth isn't measured by your wallet, but by how you treat the person holding your food. Drop a heart if you believe respect is the real currency.
My sister walked into the living room holding a clump of blood and said, I think I'm dying. I was on the couch eating cereal and just froze. She was standing there in her pajama shorts with this dark red mess in her palms. Her face was completely white. I dropped the bowl and grabbed my keys. What happened? I said, and she just shook her head and started crying. I practically dragged her to my car. She'd been crashing at my place for 2 weeks because her apartment had a mold problem. The whole drive she wouldn't tell me anything. I was doing like 70 in a 45. When we got to the ER, I ran in and said my sister was bleeding and they brought out a wheelchair immediately. They took her back and I sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes. A nurse finally brought me to where my sister was on a bed with an IV in her arm. The doctor asked if she wanted me in the room. My sister looked terrified but nodded. The doctor said she'd had a miscarriage. Early term, probably around 8 or 9 weeks. I just stood there because my sister didn't have a boyfriend. She'd been single for like a year. After the doctor left, I asked who it was. She started crying and said she couldn't tell me. Then her phone started buzzing. She grabbed it and her whole face changed. She declined, but it rang again and again. She finally answered. She said, yeah, I'm fine, and then no, you can't come here. She kept saying no, seriously, don't, and hung up. She looked at me all panicked and said she needed to leave right now. I told her she couldn't just walk out of a hospital. She tried getting up anyway, but the IV was still in. 15 minutes later, I heard someone at the nurse's station. It was my boyfriend Trevor. I hadn't told him which hospital we were at. I hadn't told him anything. He came around the corner and walked straight into my sister's room like he knew exactly where to find her. Didn't even look at me. He went right to her bedside and said, "Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" Everything went quiet. My sister was staring at him with tears running down her face. Trevor finally turned and saw me sitting there. His face went pure panic. I stood up and asked how he knew where we were. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. I asked again, "How did you know which hospital and which room?" He said he'd called around asking if my sister had been admitted. That's when it clicked. My sister said his name like she was begging him to stop. But I was already putting it together. The way she'd been moving weird for the past month, the way she suddenly needed to stay at my place right when Trevor started coming over more. I looked at Trevor and said, "How long?" He tried to say it wasn't what I thought, but I repeated it. "How long have you been sleeping with my sister?" My sister was dead-ass sobbing so hard a nurse came in. Trevor just stood there. Finally, he said 2 months. We'd been dating for 3.5 months total. I grabbed my purse and my sister's purse. Trevor tried to block my way, but I shoved past him hard enough that he stumbled. I walked to the nurse's station and told them my sister was checking out and I needed the paperwork now. The nurse said that wasn't recommended, but I stared at her until she printed the forms. I went back and yanked the IV out of my sister's arm myself. She yelped and the nurse yelled, but I didn't care. I pulled my sister out of bed and dragged her down the hallway. Trevor followed saying, wait, but I turned around and screamed at him to get away so loud that security started walking over. He stopped. I got my sister to my car and shoved her in. She kept saying she was sorry. I didn't say anything. I drove straight to our mom's house 40 minutes away. My sister tried to talk, but I turned the radio up as loud as it would go. When we got there, I told her to get out. She asked what about her stuff at my apartment. I said I'd leave it on the porch. She tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away and told her if she ever contacted me, I'd tell everyone what she did. I watched her walk up and knock. Mom answered looking confused. I reversed out before Mom could come talk to me. When I got home, Trevor was sitting on my front steps. I parked and got out and he stood up saying, "Please let me explain." I walked past him and unlocked my door. He tried to follow, but I slammed the door in his face so hard the frame cracked. He banged on it for 10 minutes. I called the cops and said my ex was harassing me at my house. They said they'd send someone. Trevor's car was gone by the time they showed up. I spent the next 3 hours throwing all my sister's stuff into garbage bags. Her clothes, her shampoo, her books, everything. 6 bags to the curb. Then I blocked both their numbers. I had an intervention about my husband's parenting. Our son Quinn was 10 weeks old when I did it. My husband Jake was head over heels for this kid, like genuinely obsessed. He'd come home from work and just stare at Quinn sleeping for 20 minutes straight. Super sweet, right? Except Jake kept doing stuff that scared the hell out of me. Like he'd put Quinn down for a nap with his little bib still tied around his neck. I'd walk in and see it and my stomach would drop. Bibs are a choking hazard when babies sleep. Everyone knows that. I told him twice to take it off before naps. Then there was the couch thing. Jake would do contact naps with Quinn on his chest, which was fine, but he'd fall asleep, just completely pass out. I came downstairs one afternoon and found them both knocked out. Jake's arm
arm barely holding Quinn, the baby's head tilted at this weird angle. I had to carefully lift Quinn off him. The dog thing was probably the worst though. We have this German Shepherd mix named Copper who's sweet but big and clumsy. Jake would leave Quinn on the playmat and then go to the bathroom or grab a snack, and Copper would be right there. One time I walked in, and Copper's tail was whacking Quinn in the face while the baby screamed. I kept bringing it up. Hey babe, can you watch Copper around Quinn? Or, remember to take the bib off before naps. Jake would nod and say yeah, but then do the exact same thing 2 days later. My mom came over one Tuesday and saw Jake asleep on the couch with Quinn. She pulled me into the kitchen and was like, you need to talk to him seriously about this. So I planned an intervention. Sounds dramatic, I know, but I didn't know what else to call it. I texted Jake's mom Linda and my mom, told them we needed to have a conversation with Jake about safe baby handling. Saturday morning, both moms showed up. Jake was confused when he saw them. What's going on? We all sat down in the living room. Quinn was in his bouncer. I went first. Jake, we need to talk about some safety stuff with Quinn. He immediately got defensive. What are you talking about? I listed everything. The bib during naps, falling asleep during contact naps, leaving Quinn alone with Copper. Jake's face went red. Are you serious right now? You ambushed me with our moms to tell me I'm a bad dad? Nobody said that, Linda jumped in. We just want to make sure Quinn stays safe. I know how to take care of my own kid, Jake snapped. He stood up. This is insane. You made me feel like I'm being attacked in my own house. My mom tried to calm things down. Jake, we know you love Quinn. We just want to help, but Jake was already heading upstairs. Unbelievable, he muttered. He stayed up there for an hour. I went up eventually and found him sitting on the bed. That was humiliating, he said quietly. I didn't know how else to get through to you. You keep doing the same dangerous stuff. Jake rubbed his face. I'm trying my best here. I work all day and just want time with him when I'm home. I know, but falling asleep with him on the couch? That's how babies die, Jake. That hit him. His eyes got watery. I didn't think it was that serious. We talked for a while after that. He admitted he'd been running on like 4 hours of sleep and didn't realize how out of it he'd been getting. He promised to be more careful. The moms left. Jake apologized to them before they went. Things got better after that. Jake started setting alarms when he did contact naps so he wouldn't fall asleep. He remembered the bib thing. He put Copper outside when Quinn was on the playmat. The intervention was awkward as hell and definitely made Jake feel ganged up on. But it worked. Quinn's safer now, and honestly, that's all that matters.
My husband started obsessively washing dishes at 2 a.m. every night, so I filed for divorce. It started 3 weeks ago. I woke up to the sound of running water. 2:47 a.m. according to my phone. I walked downstairs and found my husband Marcus standing at the sink, scrubbing a plate that was already clean. Babe, what are you doing? He jumped like I'd caught him doing something wrong. Oh, just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd clean up, except we have a dishwasher. And the plate in his hand was spotless. I went back to bed thinking maybe he was stressed about work. Then it happened again the next night. 2:51 a.m. Running water. I checked the sink the next morning. Every single dish was re-washed, even the ones from the dishwasher. Night 3, I pretended to be asleep and watched him get up. He moved slowly, carefully, like he was sneaking out. I heard the water start at exactly 2:43 a.m. I gave it 10 minutes, then crept downstairs. Marcus was at the sink again, washing the same coffee mug over and over. His eyes were fixed on the window above the sink. Marcus, you're scaring me. He spun around, soap suds dripping from his hands. I'm fine. Go back to bed. You're washing clean dishes at 3 a.m. That's not fine. He didn't respond. Just turned back to the sink and kept scrubbing. I made an appointment with our family doctor. Maybe early onset dementia, some kind of OCD episode. The doctor ran tests. Everything came back normal. Week 2, I started tracking it every single night. Always between 2:40 and 3 a.m. Always the same spot at the sink. Always staring out that window. I tried talking to him during the day. Are you having an affair? What? No. Then why are you acting insane? He just looked at me with these exhausted eyes and said, I'm keeping us safe. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I called his brother, his mom. Nobody had answers. His mom said, maybe he's just going through something. Give him space. Space? He was washing dishes in the middle of the night for 2 weeks straight. I couldn't give him space. I gave him an ultimatum. Either you tell me what's going on, or I'm leaving. He went pale. You can't leave. Watch me. That night, I packed a bag. I was planning to go to my sister's. Then Marcus did something that made my blood run cold. He grabbed my arm hard. Please, you need to stay in this house. Both of you. Both of you. He meant me and our daughter Lily. My hands started shaking. You're hurting me. He let go immediately, but the fear in his eyes didn't go away. Just trust me, please. For 2 more days. I should have left right then, but something in his voice made me stay. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2:39 a.m., I heard him get up. I followed him downstairs, but stayed hidden. Watched him take his position at the sink. He wasn't washing dishes this time. He was just standing there, staring out the window into our backyard. Then I saw his phone light up on the counter. A notification from our security camera app. I grabbed it while he was distracted. His passcode was Lily's birthday. I opened the app and scrolled through 2 weeks of footage. My stomach dropped. Every single night at 2:45 a.m., a man appeared in our backyard. Different each night, but always the same pattern. He would stand at the fence line, just staring at Lily's bedroom window. On night 4, he tried the back door, found it locked. On night 7, he got halfway across the yard before Marcus flipped on the porch light and he ran. On night 12, he made it all the way to Lily's window. Marcus had been standing at that sink because it was the only place in the house where he could see the backyard and Lily's window at the same time. The dishes were just his excuse, his cover story so I wouldn't panic. I scrolled to last night's footage. There he was again. But this time, the man was holding something. I zoomed in, a crowbar. Marcus had already called the police. They'd told him the man hadn't technically committed a crime yet. Trespassing charges wouldn't stick because he kept leaving before they arrived. Marcus couldn't tell me because he knew I'd either panic or leave, and he couldn't watch the backyard alone. I looked up at my husband, still standing at that sink, protecting us the only way he knew how. That's when I heard it. The sound of breaking glass from Lily's room. Marcus was already running. I called 911 with hands I couldn't control. The police got there in 4 minutes. The man was arrested trying to climb through Lily's window. They found zip ties in his pocket, and duct tape, and a knife. He'd been following Lily home from school for 6 months. 10 years of fighting about dishes. That's what saved my daughter's life.
What made my father-in-law hand me a folder that ended my marriage at the altar? The organ music swelled, and every guest stood as the doors opened. But instead of my bride walking toward me, her father stepped through alone with a manila folder clutched against his chest. His face was gray and his hands were shaking. He walked past his wife in the front pew without looking at her. He walked past the bridesmaids, frozen in confusion. He stopped directly in front of me and pressed the folder into my hands. His voice cracked when he spoke. "I'm sorry, son. You deserve to know who you're marrying." The church erupted into whispers, and I stared at the man who was supposed to walk his daughter down the aisle, wondering why he looked like he had just witnessed a death. I met Vanessa 3 years ago at a charity gala where she was volunteering. She told me she spent her weekends helping underprivileged kids learn to read. She said her passion was giving back to the community. Her father, Gerald, was a retired detective who seemed to adore her. Her mother, Diane, treated me like the son they never had. Everything about Vanessa was perfect. She cried at sad movies and remembered every anniversary and called her parents every Sunday without fail. I proposed after 18 months, and she said yes before I finished the question. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. I thought I had found someone pure and genuine in a world full of pretenders. 3 months before the wedding, Gerald started acting strange. He canceled our golf games at the last minute. He avoided eye contact during family dinners. Once I caught him staring at Vanessa with an expression I could not read. When I asked if something was wrong, he said he was just feeling nostalgic about losing his little girl. I believed him because why would a father lie about something like that? But the week before the wedding, he called me at midnight. His voice was hoarse like he had been drinking. He asked me if I really knew who Vanessa was. I laughed and said I knew everything about her. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Sometimes the people we love the most are the best at hiding who they really are." I asked him what that meant. He hung up without answering. I opened the folder while 200 guests watched in silence. The first page was a background check with Vanessa's photo and a different name. Her real name was Catherine Marsh, and she had a criminal record in 3 states. The second page showed court documents from a civil lawsuit filed by a man named William Porter, who claimed she had stolen $60,000 from his business account while they were engaged. The third page was a newspaper clipping about a man named David Hollister, who took his own life after discovering his wife had been living a double life. His wife's name was Catherine Marsh. She was listed as a person of interest in the investigation, but charges were never filed. The fourth page was a photo of Vanessa standing at David Hollister's funeral, wearing the same pearl necklace she had shown me 2 weeks ago. She told me it belonged to her grandmother. Gerald grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the altar. His eyes were wet with tears he was fighting to hold back. He told me he ran her prints last month after she asked him to destroy some old files from his detective days. He said the files contained evidence from the Hollister investigation that could implicate her if anyone ever reopened the case. She didn't know he had already read every page. She didn't know he had spent the last month rebuilding the trail she thought she had erased. He told me his real daughter, Catherine, died in his heart the moment he realized she had driven a man to suicide and felt nothing. The woman I was about to marry was a stranger wearing his daughter's face. The church doors burst open, and Vanessa appeared in her wedding gown looking like an angel descended from heaven. She saw the folder in my hands, and her expression shifted. The warmth drained from her eyes. Her smile froze into something mechanical. She walked toward us with her bouquet still clutched in her fingers and stopped 10 feet away. She looked at her father with pure hatred. "You promised you would never tell." Her voice was ice. Gerald stepped forward, and his whole body was trembling. "I promised to protect you when you deserved protection. You don't deserve it anymore." Vanessa lunged at him, and her veil flew off as she clawed for the folder. I pulled it away, and she stumbled against a pew. She screamed that her father was lying. She screamed that I was making a mistake, but her mascara was running, and her perfect composure had shattered, and for the first time I saw the real person behind the performance. I dropped the folder on the altar and pulled off my boutonniere. I told her the wedding was over, and I was going to make sure every victim she had ever created knew exactly where to find her. She screamed that I would regret this for the rest of my life. Gerald was already on the phone with his former partner at the police department. Vanessa tried to run, but 2 of my groomsmen blocked the exit. Her mother, Diane, was sobbing in the front pew, asking how she raised a monster. The guests were pulling out their phones, recording everything. Vanessa's perfect world collapsed in 3 minutes flat. Vanessa was arrested that evening in her wedding dress. The Hollister case was reopened, and 4 more victims came forward within a week. She is currently facing multiple counts of fraud and 1 count of involuntary manslaughter. Gerald testified against his own daughter and told the courtroom he would rather lose her forever than let her destroy another innocent life.
During the time my 7-year-old daughter had an accident and was undergoing brain surgery, my parents held a consolation party for their golden grandson because the boy came in 2nd place in a chess competition. 3 years later, my dad was hospitalized. My revenge shocked my entire family. I'm Nolan, 40, raising my daughter Mia alone after my wife died. 3 years ago, on a Saturday afternoon, everything shattered. A truck driver had a stroke, jumped the curb, and sent Mia flying across the pavement. Blood poured from her head. The ambulance took forever. At Memorial Hermann Hospital, Dr. Thompson's face was granite. Traumatic brain injury with bleeding. We need to operate immediately to reduce skull pressure or she'll die. I signed with shaking hands and watched them wheel my 7-year-old into surgery to open her skull. It was 7 p.m. I called my parents, my voice breaking. "Mia's having emergency brain surgery. Can you come?" Mom said they'd be right there. 3 hours passed. No parents. At 10 p.m., I got a text. "We're busy with something important. We'll come when we're done." The surgery lasted until 11 p.m. Mia survived but remained in critical condition. My parents never showed. Not that night, not the next day. Then I opened Facebook. My mom had posted photos from my sister Riley's house. The whole family gathered around a cake, balloons everywhere, celebrating my nephew Jordan. The caption read, "Threw a party to cheer up our grandson. He only got 2nd place in his chess tournament, but to us, he's still number 1." Posted at 9 p.m. while Mia's skull was open on an operating table. In the comments, my mom replied to a relative, "Family comes first. We'll always be there for our grandson's important moments." The next morning, I had a crucial meeting with Japanese partners, a project I'd spent 8 months building. I called my parents, asking them to watch Mia for just 2 hours so I wouldn't lose this multi-million-dollar deal. Dad's response, "We're still consoling Jordan. He's been crying all night. You're an adult. Deal with it yourself." Then he hung up. My boss postponed the meeting when I explained. He said, "Family comes first." A man I'd known for 3 years cared more than my own parents. 2 days later, Mia woke up. Her first question destroyed me. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" 5 days after surgery, my parents finally appeared. No flowers, no gifts. Mom looked at Mia and said, "Look how healthy she is. You made it sound like she was dying." Then they asked why they really came. "Riley needs $20,000 for Jordan's private school tuition. Can you help? My daughter just survived brain surgery, and they wanted money for the golden grandson." I threw them out. Then I served them an eviction notice. They'd been living rent-free in my house for 5 years. They had 30 days to leave. Mom begged. Dad threatened. They refused to move. I got a court order. Police supervised as they packed their boxes. Humiliated. Riley refused to take them in. The house is too small. Jordan needs quiet to study. They ended up in a 1-200-month apartment. 3 years of silence followed. Mia recovered completely. We built our own life. Then last week, Mom called. Your dad was in a car accident. He needs surgery. Insurance only covers 70%. We need $30,000. Please help us. I hung up and took Mia to Papa Brothers Steakhouse, the most expensive place in Houston. We were celebrating her being top of her class. I posted photos on Facebook. So proud of my daughter Mia. Let's celebrate. Mom called back, screaming, "Your dad's in the ER and you're at a restaurant?" I replied calmly. 3 years ago, Mia was on an operating table with her skull opened. Where were you? Throwing a chess party. I'm doing exactly what you did. The next morning, Mom and Riley showed up at my door, begging for the $30,000. I smiled. I know about Jordan's $100,000 college trust fund. Use that for dad. Riley went pale. We can't touch that. It's for Jordan's future. I replied, then there's nothing more to say. Please leave. Mom's final words, you'll be punished for this. I closed the door. Maybe. But my daughter will never endure what I endured. I watched them fade into the night. No satisfaction, no regret. Just the knowledge that some boundaries, once crossed, can never be uncrossed.
I said kids will be kids when my children hit another child. That was 3 months ago at the community pool. My twin boys, Kevin and Austin, were 7, and they'd been shoving the smaller kid underwater during swim time. The kid's mom came over, her son crying with a bloody nose from hitting the pool edge. I just shrugged and said those exact words. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind, then grabbed her kid and left. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the pool manager. My family was banned permanently. Apparently that mom filed a complaint with photos of her son's injuries, and 3 other parents backed her up with stories about my boys. I called the manager, said it was ridiculous. Kids roughhouse all the time. He said the decision was final. My husband Grant didn't even seem surprised when I told him. He just nodded and went back to his laptop. That should have been my first clue something was wrong, but I was too busy being mad about the pool ban to notice. Next month, Kevin's teacher called me in for a meeting. Apparently, he'd been bullying a kid named Otto in his class, pushing him down at recess, stealing his lunch. The teacher said this had been going on since September, and she'd sent 4 emails I never responded to. I checked my spam folder that night and found all 4, plus 3 more from Austin's teacher about similar stuff. I showed up to the school the next day and said the other kids were probably provoking mine, that boys are naturally more physical, that everyone was overreacting. The principal, this older guy named Mr. Walsh, just looked tired. He said both boys were getting 3-day suspensions, and I needed to figure out what was happening at home. When I got back to my car, Grant had texted me, "We need to talk tonight." That was it. No context, nothing else. I drove home and found him already there at 2 in the afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table with a folder full of papers. Turns out he'd been documenting everything for 6 months. Photos of holes punched in the boys' bedroom walls, screenshots of messages from other parents about playdates that ended with their kids getting hurt, a list of every time I'd made excuses or blamed other children. He'd even recorded me on his phone 2 weeks earlier when Kevin broke Austin's nose during a fight, and I'd told them to toughen up and stop being dramatic. Grant slid divorce papers across the table. He'd already filed, already had a lawyer, already moved money into a separate account. He said he was getting primary custody, and I could see the boys on supervised visits until I got help. I laughed in his face, told him no judge would side with him over their mother. The custody hearing was 4 weeks later. Grant brought Mr. Walsh, the pool manager, 3 different parents, and our family doctor, who said she'd noted concerns about the boys' aggressive behavior in their files for 2 years. His lawyer played that recording of me dismissing Kevin's broken nose. Then they showed texts where I'd told Grant to stop being soft and let boys be boys. I lost. The judge gave Grant primary custody, said the boys needed structure and consequences I wasn't providing. I got them every other weekend with a court-appointed supervisor present. The supervisor was this young woman named Holly, who wrote down everything I said and did. First supervised visit, Kevin asked why they had to see me with a babysitter. I started to explain it was all a misunderstanding, that their dad was being dramatic, but Holly cut me off and said we should play a board game instead. The boys barely talked to me the whole 3 hours. Grant enrolled them in counseling, started teaching them about boundaries and apologies and taking responsibility. Kevin wrote a letter to Otto saying sorry for bullying him. Austin made a card for the kid from the pool. Grant posted about it on Facebook and got like 200 supportive comments. I made my own post saying I was a victim of parental discrimination, and the system was broken. Got 37 reactions, mostly angry faces, and my sister commented telling me to delete it and get therapy. I blocked her. Month 4 of the new custody arrangement, I showed up for my weekend visit and the boys asked Holly if they could skip it. Said they had plans with their dad to go hiking and didn't want to miss it. Holly looked at me, then back at them, and said we could reschedule. I drove home alone. Grant sent me a text that night with a photo of the boys at the top of some trail, both of them actually smiling. Caption said, "First hike without a fight, progress." I stared at that photo for 20 minutes. They looked happier than I'd seen them in years. My lawyer called last week and said Grant was filing to modify the custody order, asking for supervised visits to be reduced to once monthly. He had documentation from their therapist showing the boys were thriving with less contact with me. The hearing is next month.